Thank you for joining me for this podcast series entitled A Real Crime. As I explained earlier, I'm beginning this series with unsolved murders I first wrote about as a reporter for the Charleston Gazette. Other kinds of cases, even those with criminal convictions, will appear in future podcasts. Episode 4, Donald Woods. From the first time I met him, I was drawn to Donald Woods' unmistakable sincerity. He truly loved his daughter Theresa. Her disappearance and subsequent murder shattered his life. He was always willing to talk to me. He wanted to keep his daughter's short life in the public eye. She was 13 when she disappeared. Theresa Woods was quiet, shy, and afraid of the dark. Her father's home and her grandmother's home were next door to each other and shared the same fenced-in yard in Kimberly, West Virginia. But when she had to go between the houses, she always wanted the porch light on. Her father told me he would have to stand at the door and watch her go into her grandmother's house. In October 1985, she moved with her mother to Oak Hill. Her mother, Betty, married Rick Holcomb. Betty and Rick worked for an ambulance transport service located on Main Street in Oak Hill. Theresa became a student at Collins Middle School and started her routine of walking from school to her mother's office. After school, February 20th, 1986, she started out to walk her usual way to her mother's office. She never made it. Donald Woods told me that as soon as his former wife called him to say Theresa was missing, he closed his grocery store and immediately went looking for her. He knew something was wrong. I never thought she was a runaway. I talked to one trooper for over 90 minutes on the phone, trying to convince him she did not run away. She was a scaredy cat. But police thought she fit the profile. Her parents were divorced, and she had just moved away from her old school and friends. Woods would eventually learn that even if police started to look for her immediately, they would not have found her alive. But he always believed that the time wasted allowed the killer to cover his tracks. Woods launched his own campaign to find his daughter. He had flyers printed up that showed her in 2 different pictures. He started putting the pictures up in stores, post offices, and schools. In one of life's great ironies, Wood first met Kathy Carroll when he took a flyer to Montgomery City Hall. Carroll, who worked at City Hall, promised to help Woods distribute the flyers. In a few weeks, Carroll would be the victim of a torturous murder. Her death will be the subject of a future podcast. Woods offered a reward. He made countless trips to talk with police and politicians. At first, he went to police several times a week. 2 years after her murder, he reduced his trips to police to once a week. In the decades before unlimited calling, he often had a phone bill that was more than $200 per month. He always kept the same phone number. He told me if someone has a guilty conscience or if someone saw something, they can still call me. Woods learned the hard way how to move through channels of bureaucracy. He told me, "They promise you the moon, but when you ask for something, forget it." His daughter's body was found June the 6th, 1986, near Laurel Creek, almost 4 months after she first disappeared. He told me how hurtful the experience was, but at least I finally knew where she was, he said. Woods joined a club no parent wants to become a member of, the Parents of Dead Children Club. He also became friends with another sad member, Edward Roberts, the father of Kathy Carroll. In a separate interview, Roberts and his wife Rebecca told me in their Oak Hill home they hoped to live long enough to find out what happened to their daughter. Roberts' wife preceded him in death. Woods told me that Roberts took some comfort in their friendship. The fathers truly understood what each was going through. I also interviewed Woods on the 25th anniversary of his daughter's murder. By then, several police officers who worked on the case had died or retired. New officers do not know the case, he said. I wonder what she might have done with her life. She wanted to go to college. Would I have grandchildren? Woods asked. He went on to tell me that he never imagined life would turn out as it did for him. Not a day goes by that I don't think about her. I miss her, he told me. Wood's mother, Theresa's grandmother, died without knowing what happened. She wanted to live long enough to see someone caught. She used to sit and cry, he told me. Like too many of the parents I will talk about in this series, Woods died without seeing anyone arrested for his daughter's murder. Donald Eugene Hank Woods Jr. was 62 when he died April the 9th, 2014. He is buried beside his daughter in the Kanawha Valley Memorial Gardens Cemetery in Glasgow, West Virginia. When he buried his daughter, he placed her Cabbage Patch doll in her casket with her. No one has ever been arrested for Theresa's murder. This is Susan Williams. Please join me next week for another episode in the series A Real Crime. Thanks to Tommy Siner for these recordings.